Hey y'all, I'm Laura Richardson with Relevate. We are Real Estate Elevated, and today's episode of I'm Moving to North Carolina Now What is going to be a fun one. So we're going to explain why your parents or your out-of-state family members may not be the best resource for you when you're buying a home here in North Carolina. So a couple of key factors. The first one is contract terms. Every state in the United States has a completely different contract. Yes, we all have the National Association of Realtors that kind of keep us in check, but each state kind of runs things their own way, and North Carolina is like the Wild West. So something that you need to understand when it comes to the contract is it's created a little bit differently. There are certain things that we have here that you may never heard of, like due diligence, and there are other things that maybe your state has, like earnest money, but it's done just a little bit differently. So keep in mind that when they're making suggestions on what type of offer you should submit, so how much due diligence you should put on the line, or how much earnest money, or even the contract period and how quickly you can close, it's definitely going to vary. Our averages here are much lower than a lot of other states, including states where a huge chunk of folks are moving to. So you want to make sure you're being competitive in the market that you're actually trying to compete in. The second one is inspections. This is a big one. So we do not do pre-inspections here. So when your family members are asking you questions about the home and what type of material facts are being presented, or even the backstory and the history, you definitely need to do a lot more research as a buyer and a buyer's agent to make sure you're prepared for the contract you're about to enter. This is an as-is purchase state, meaning yes, we can renegotiate during the due diligence period, but sellers are not really hard-pressed, especially in a seller's market, which is extremely competitive, to give a whole lot during that contract. The contract literally says it's an as-is purchase. So you got to keep that in mind, that a lot of those inspections, things that maybe your family members think are being done on the front end and paid for by the seller, are actually being paid for by the buyer during the contract period. And that also means your due diligence money is now on the line, so there's a little bit of skin in the game that maybe your family didn't have to put down. Something else that's happened over the course of time is that the contract has changed, the market has changed, the process has changed. So even if you have family members that live here in North Carolina, but maybe they purchased a couple of years ago, stuff might be done a little bit differently. Due diligence is probably a lot different, being higher than even in 2016 when I purchased my last house. We put very low money on the line in comparison to my neighborhood now, where it would be significantly higher. Another big thing is some of our loopholes have changed. For example, you now have a 7-day extension here in North Carolina if you can't close by closing day. It used to be 14 days. So even if you have somebody who purchased in North Carolina a few years ago, that loophole has definitely changed, and it is a game changer. In some other states, you have things called contingencies. We do not have contingencies that we're removing. So often when I'm speaking with folks who have family that are giving them guidance, including other agents from other states, often they'll ask about, well, what contingencies are you guys going to offer to remove? We do not have that type of verbiage here. A big one is a finance contingency. North Carolina got rid of that in 2019. So unfortunately, if you're moving from some big states where the buyers have that option through their lender in the loan process to remove that finance contingency and move forward in the contract, we don't have the same flexibility. So buyers, you need to know, and you need to advise your family that when you commit to a contract here in North Carolina, there's definitely going to be some money and some time put on the line. And then the last thing is interest rates. So if you have a family member, and this doesn't matter where in the United States they're coming from, if you have a family member that bought in, let's say, the 80s versus the early 2000s versus right after the market crash in 08, and then since then, they probably had a very different experience. So remember, when people are giving you advice, they're advising you based on what they've been through. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't listen, but take everything with a grain of salt and make sure you have some good contacts that are here in our current market, meaning local lender, a closing attorney, somebody who actually does the legal stuff here, and then also a local agent who is familiar with the trends of the market and how to write a competitive deal. So while family members have the best of intentions, always remember who's advising you and what their experience has been. I'm Laura Richardson with Relevate. Please keep in mind you can follow us here on YouTube or listen to us on Spotify everywhere. If you have any comments, drop them below and we'll be sure to follow up.